Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the, I'd like to call to order the meeting for the Finance and Governance Committee for 10/11/22. And Madam Clerk, roll call and posting of the agenda.
Member Basua,
Here.
Member Tehran,
Here.
Chair Zaragoza.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on October 4th, 2022.
Okay, thank you. Let's raise for our salute to our flag, and Councilman Basu, can you help us out? Thank you. Our next item is item B, public comments not in the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers either in the audience or virtually?
Mayor, we do not have any speakers here in person, and we also do not have any public speakers virtually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then our next item is item C1. The city clerk is approval of the minutes, recommendation that the Finance and Governance Committee approve the minutes for September 27, 22. Regular meeting is presented.
I'll move to accept the minutes as written.
I will second.
First, Councilman Tehran, second Basua, roll call.
Member Tehran,
Yes.
Member Basua,
Aye.
Chair Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. Our next item is reports D1, and this is the Finance Department. Subject authorization and execution and delivery of schedule of property to the Bank of America Master Equipment Lease / Purchase Agreement A7667 for the financing and leasing of 2 fire engines. And the recommendation that the Finance and Governance Committee recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of equipment schedule number 26 to agreement A7667 Master Agreement Lease / Purchase Agreement with the Bank of America Public Capital Corporation in the amount not to exceed $2.1 million to reimburse the city for the purchase of the 2 fire engines and authorizing the execution and delivery of order documents required in connections therein, and authorizing the taking of all other actions necessary for consummation of the transaction contemplated by this resolution. And this, we have a live presentation, and Betsy George.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Zaragoza. Betsy George, Chief Financial Officer. And as usual, NHA will be here to present the particulars of the financing of the engines, and then also Fire Chief Hamilton's here if there's any questions regarding the equipment.
Okay, go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Betsy. Good afternoon, Mayor Zaragoza, council members, members of the public. I hope you all can hear me.
Yes.
Great, good. My name is Christian Sprunger. I'm an assistant vice president with NHA Advisors. We are the city's municipal financial advisor. I'm going to share my screen, so give me one moment. Okay, I've begun sharing my screen. I hope it's visible. Today, I'll be speaking with you about an equipment lease financing for 2 fire pumper engines. The recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee further recommend to City Council to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing equipment schedule number 26 to the city's master equipment lease purchase agreement with Bank of America in an amount not to exceed $2.1 million to reimburse the city for the purchase of the 2 engines, and also to authorize other actions as necessary, staff to take other actions as necessary to enter into the lease. To provide a little bit of background, the fire department continues to improve and modernize its fleet. The current need being these 2 Pierce Arrow pumper trucks. The total cost of these vehicles is $2 million, and the 2 engines will replace the current engines E63 and E85, both of which will be moved to reserve status. City staff have accelerated the process of purchasing these vehicles to avoid a 6% cost increase from the vendor, which would take effect after the 1st of November. So the acceleration to save the 6% cost increase saves the city over $145,000 in upfront purchase costs. And in addition to those savings, city plans to prepay for the vehicles to save an additional $78,000. So combined, these two strategies will save about $225,000. The city has an existing, there we go. The city has an existing master equipment lease purchase agreement with Bank of America, and city staff plan to utilize this agreement to reimburse the city for the purchase of the vehicles. The current agreement has been in place since 2014 and has been used several times, most recently this spring, to purchase 3 fire engines. Every time there's a draw from this master agreement for a specific vehicle or vehicles, it's at a new equipment schedule is added. So the current equipment schedule is number 26. That's for these 2 fire trucks specifically. It's the equipment schedule number 26 will have a 10-year term. The final payment will be in June 2032. The amount borrowed will be just over $2 million. And Bank of America has provided a locked and fixed 10-year interest rate of 3.694%. This rate will not change before the loan funds and closes in mid-November, and then of course is fixed for the 10-year term of the loan. The annual payments based on this loan will be about $256,000 per year. I'd like to summarize the 4 documents before you tonight: the authorizing resolution, the master equipment lease purchase agreement, the equipment schedule number 26, and then the escrow account and control agreement. The authorizing resolution provides the authority to city staff to enter into the lease and identifies a not to exceed amount of $2.1 million. The second document is the master equipment lease purchase agreement. This was approved by city council and executed way back in 2014. The terms of this document aren't changing. We just included it in this packet because it governs how each of the additional draws, each of the equipment schedules are drawn from it. The third document is the equipment schedule number 26. This document identifies the specific terms related to the financing of these 2 fire engines. It includes the amortization and repayment schedule. That section is blank currently. When we finalized the agenda packet for this meeting, we hadn't yet locked the rate. So now the rate has been locked, and so we'll be populating that document with the debt service schedule based on that locked 3.79%, or sorry, 3.69% rate. The final document before you is the escrow and account control agreement. This document governs the process by which the city withdraws the money to reimburse the city for the purchase of the vehicles up front. With regard to timing, following tonight's meeting, we'll work with Bank of America to finalize the legal documents for this escrow draw, sorry, for this equipment lease, which will be placed in escrow and drawn. And then we'll be bringing the item back before City Council at the November 1st meeting. We expect to close and fund the lease in mid-November. This slide re-summarizes the recommendation before the Finance and Governance Committee related to this item. And I am happy to take any questions.
Yeah, Christian, so initially, when we put the deal together, it was 3.6. And if we would have done it now, it would have been 6%.
So the interest rates have moved up 0.28% since
Okay.
that rate was locked at the end of September. So in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, it's moved up 0.28%, 28 basis points. That would translate over the 10-year term to about $32,000 of higher interest payments. And so locking the rate effectively saved the city about $30,000 in interest expense.
It's just outstanding. It's just really, really great. Thank you for Betsy, for maybe the chief. And Betsy, first of all, I want to commend the finance department again for saving $223,000. I think it's the savings, which is, that's $250,000, which is tremendous. And then I was going to ask the chief, I think chief, the life of a fire truck is potentially, what is it, 10 years, but we can use them up to 25. Is that correct?
Yeah, very close, Mayor. So the frontline service life, where it would be the main vehicle for that station would be 12 years is what we're
12
shooting
years.
for. And the total service life of the vehicle would be 25 years. So we'd still get an equal amount of time in reserve status.
And my understanding is that we have a couple of trucks that are 25 years old, right?
We do. We have, I think we still have 3 Seagrave engines that were purchased in 1997 that are still in service currently.
And Councilman, and these are Pierce Aero XT triple. What is that?
So yeah, a triple combination just means that it carries hose, ladders, and a pump. So it's just it's sort of an old school antiquated language, but that's why they call it a triple combination.
Oh, okay. Thank you. But I really, again, commend you, for replacing that equipment now, because it'll cost them more money eventually in maintenance and performance and so forth. And Betsy for saving us $250,000, which is really, really fantastic.
Actually, that was the fire chief and his team that saved the $250,000 by their negotiating and the RFP process for purchasing. But so we'll share the credit. And I also wanted to mention too that the purchase agreement is going later tonight in front of the Public Safety Committee.
Oh, good.
So that item, it's going in tandem with the financing. So assuming that the purchase gets approved, then this will go together.
So my thank you for the $250,000. It's a partnership. Thank you, council members.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have just 2 questions regarding this. Number one, commendations to our fire staff and our finance staff for making this happen. And just to kind of look at the other side of the coin, if someone were to ask, well, why is this being rushed? Like, why do we need to run this through now? What is the rush? And we see the savings we're looking at for the taxpayers, nearly $250,000. Just to kind of alleviate that, in case anyone's having those thoughts, have we seen for an apparatus like this that we're looking at purchasing, have we seen costs increase happen along with the rest of the sector and the rest of, materials costs that we see elsewhere in things that we're purchasing?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one area where inflation has really really been impactful. And so we've seen normally the fire engine manufacturers raise their prices once a year. We've seen 2 and 3 price increases per year for the last 2 years. So this price increase actually took us a little bit by surprise. We weren't anticipating anything till February. Thankfully, because we had just recently purchased 3 fire engines with City Council's support, we're able to use a very similar specification and move this forward quickly.
All right, thank you for that. And as the mayor had already alluded to, many of our engines are nearing the end of their regular service life and will be placed in reserve status, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And unfortunately, the other issue we have is supply chain issues. So we currently have an engine that's in frontline service at 17 years old. And we won't see a replacement for that till at least 2024. The engines that we're talking about this evening likely won't be delivered until 25 at this point.
Understood.
Yeah.
And my last question is, I believe we had this in a recent report regarding the kind of newer developments in fire technology and the engines. Will these 2 that we're looking at, will they have the separate compartment with separate ventilation for off-gassing of materials and uniforms, so that when our staff are going from a location that they're isolated from those possibly toxic fumes?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question, particularly in light of this being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and then next month being Movember, which is focused on men's health issues. But yes, these engines will, they call it a clean cab design. So there's no contaminants should be entering into the cab of the rig where the personnel are, and so that includes their personal protective equipment after fighting fire. Will be kept separate, but also the air packs or the self-contained breathing apparatus that they wear actually are now stored outside the cab of the engine, which has been a funny evolution. When I first started, which wasn't that long ago, They were on the outside of the engine or in a compartment, and then they put them in the cab in the seat so we could move faster. And they realized that wasn't good for our health. And so now they're actually moving them back into the cab of the engine. So
Okay, so what's
Yeah.
old is new again.
that's exactly, yes.
All right, those are my questions. Thank you, Chief, and
Just
thank
to-
you, Ms. CFO.
Just to add to that, on the prevention of getting our firefighters, a potential maybe cancer in the future. I think it was part of your report, to eliminate that, or not eliminate it, but at least try to prevent it to some degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, just this week, I've learned of two of our retirees that dedicate a lot of years of service to the city that are now battling cancer. And that's something that I want to see us trying to avoid as much as possible.
And as a council member, that is going to help us prevent a lot of that type of illness or, harmful to our firefighters.
Without a doubt.
Thank you. Basu. Okay, so. Okay.
I will second.
So, Mayor, do we have any public comment or
public-
should we check to see if
Any
there's
additional,
anybody
no
else? that-
comments at all?
Mayor, we do not have any public speakers for this item. We do not have speakers virtually, and we do not have public speakers here in person. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, so we have motion by Council Basu, a second by Councilor Tehran. Roll call.
Member Pasua,
Aye.
Chair Zaragoza,
I'm.
Member Tehran.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. And before I adjourn again, I'd like to commend our city employees, Mr. City Manager, our city attorneys, and our deputy managers and fire chief and finance. Excellent work like always. $250,000 savings is a tremendous amount of dollars, and I think that our residents really need to understand the competency that we have currently with our staff. Thank you so much for your work. Okay, so do we have any items for future agendas? No? We are adjourned. We'll be back at 6:45. Thank you.